I am Jessica Butts. Welcome to the Front Seat Life podcast, where I help you learn to be unapologetically who you are and live your life from the front seat through personal development, self-awareness, and real and raw conversations about life, love, and business. I'm a former psychotherapist and couples counselor turned author, speaker, coach, and lovingly, well, I hope so anyway, been nicknamed Jessica Kick Butts because I believe sometimes we need hand-holding and sometimes we just need to be told the freaking truth, even if it hurts a little. So each week I'll be sharing truth bombs, life lessons, powerful interviews, and intuitive insights to empower you to get up, show up, and live your life in a new, powerful, authentic way. So if you're ready to climb into your front seat and embark on a journey of total transformation, you have come to the right place. Start your engines. Let's do this. Welcome, Front Seat Lifers. I have I don't even know how to introduce you, my amazing, thoughtful, kick-ass, brilliant friend with me today, Sara Dean, who is the creator, inventor, entrepreneur of mind behind Shameless Mom and Academy on the podcast. So Miss Sara Dean, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I'm yelling into my microphone.
I am too. So here's the deal. Here's the behind the scenes. This is always what's funny is when you're really good friends with somebody that you're doing a podcast with. I'm not going to lie. We've already had like a 20-minute conversation about all the things. So we were talking about, her husband rearranging apps on her phone and like, don't touch my computer and my new mastermind with Kate Northup. So we've been chatting for a while and I was about to tell her like, this is what we're going to talk about. It's like, no. We just need to get started. So yes. Welcome to the show. Miss Sara Dean, Shameless Mom Academy, absolutely brilliant podcast, huge following, doing amazing things in the world, and also just a really total badass woman in this world. One of the strongest voices for women and men, but specifically for women that I know of right now. I mean, you really are doing amazing work in your community, but also just in general. And the reason I wanted to have you on was for a lot of reasons, is because as I'm jumping into this 2020 podcast and kind of, getting more and more clear about the message that I want to talk about, is this is about being unapologetically who we are in this world. This is my message. This is what I love to talk about. And I want to have inspiring, educational, helpful conversations for the women who are listening with badasses like you. And I was just having a conversation, and I'm actually not going to say who it is because I haven't gotten her permission on this. So I'm just going to say it was a very dear friend of mine. And we were having a conversation as we had a getaway together about the thing I love to talk about, differentiation and attunement. Basically, differentiation is being who you are in this world, showing up, being unapologetically who you are. And the other side of this infinity symbol that I talk about all the time is attunement, like how we are with other people, how you and I, Sara, are in relationship, how you are with your husband, how you are with your clients, how you are with your adorable son, all the ways that we attune. So we're having this conversation, my friend and I, and she kind of starts tearing up. And she is having this epiphany right in front of me that these are very black and white areas in her life. So because she was raised, as many women were in our generation, is that differentiation, having a voice, having an opinion, means you're a bitch. Like there's no other way. To her, if you have an opinion, if you have a voice, you're a bitch. That's all. It's black and white. And the other side, the attunement side, is that you're accommodating, that you're being accommodating and losing your voice. You're giving up yourself. So I thought, I don't know, a better person to have this conversation with than my friend Sara Dean about how you go out in the world, what this means to you, what it's like for you to stand up for women's rights, what it's like for you to stand up for being a woman in this world, to being an entrepreneur, to having a long-standing relationship with your spouse, all the things. So I just didn't sugarcoat that. I just jumped right in. This is no like, hey, let's get to know each other. I just want to jump right in and see where this conversation goes, because this is probably the most passionate thing in my life right now, is helping us find a middle ground, right? There's not the bitch or accommodating. And you know, what's weird to me is I don't think men have this thought. I really don't think men go around the world thinking like, oh, I can't say what I want to say because I might be like perceived the wrong way. That's just not a thought. And so I'm going to stop talking and see if you have any like starter thoughts on this. And I'm going to tell the listeners, we have no agenda whatsoever. I just know that when this chick and I get together, a magic happens. So no pressure, but talk.
Well, thank you that was a really, really kind introduction. I really appreciate all the kind words. That means a lot to me. And I'm really excited to talk about this and dive in. And it's funny. I this morning was on Facebook scrolling at like 5:30 in the morning, as one does when they're supposed to be journaling. And I even thought of you. I was like, I know Jessica's journaling right now and I'm just scrolling, like slapping my own hand. But there was this conversation that someone posted, a local friend of my husband's, I think is how I know him. I don't know him well at all. I met him in person one time, but he posted something about an article about homelessness in Seattle. Very hot topic. So there's a bunch of comments underneath, and I see this woman make a comment about, so one woman says something along the lines of, I understand some of this because I actually was homeless for a short time given these certain circumstances. And, for me, it was only a few months, but it's a slippery slope and it happens to people you wouldn't think it would happen to. And so then this other woman comes in and she's like, well, I don't consider that, quote unquote, the homeless. I consider that falling on hard times. And so I see this and I'm like, I've met the guy who posted this once. I see a woman putting the homeless in quotes, and Jessica knows this about me, my justice brain is like, mama needs to go for a run right now. Because mama needs to say something about this, but I need to like formulate my thoughts. So I went running like an hour later. It's like all I thought about, because I was like, how can I say something about this how can I insert myself into a conversation that's not in my own living room, essentially, in a way that is powerful and meaningful, that doesn't make everyone defensive, but that puts some clear boundaries in place. That like, how dangerous is it when we decide to label groups of people around who is worthy of compassion and empathy? And so I just like the whole time I was running, I was like, how do I word this? And I came home and I commented, and you never know what's going to happen when you comment on those kinds of things.
Have you looked?
So I've only looked once, and like some guy liked it, and then the woman started going back and forth with someone else. So I don't know if she just is not acknowledging or what. And I've only gone and looked once, but it is one of those things where like, I cannot help myself in those kinds of conversations. I can't help myself in terms of I want to say something, but also I don't want to say it in a way where I'm going to be immediately dismissed because it's a fly off the handle, being bitchy, bossy, whatever. So wording things in a way where I sound like well thought out, well spoken, well educated, composed, like all these things, because otherwise, you do get labeled as like, there she goes, losing her cool, So it's important to me to be thoughtful around, like, I have high emotions and a high need for justice and a high regard for empathy and compassion for people. And I have to be, I'm just conscientious around how I respond, but stay in alignment with my core values.
That's interesting that you brought up core values. So I want to come back to that because I have some thoughts around that. So you and I, we're just going to like pull the curtain back. You and I are in a mastermind together and we Marco Polo each other many, many times a day, sometimes many times during the week, but some days there's like multiple. In fact, we started this conversation. You were like, bitch, why didn't you get back to me about the Marco Polo? Like, what happened? So we multiple times a day. And one of the things where we differ, and you just said it, is you have a need for justice.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I am personally working on, and this is, I don't think we're going to solve the world's problems right now, but I think it's an interesting thing for the listeners to be thinking about, is where you land on this spectrum of either justice
Mm-hmm.
or letting it go.
Right.
And I don't think either one is right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting, I think, to think about what kind of stress it causes us
Mm-hmm.
and how this is in terms of differentiation, being unapologetically who you are, saying what you want to say, and losing your voice, becoming accommodating and hiding. So I, interestingly enough, err on the side of not saying things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting, and it's part of my attachment. It's part of a learned behavior. So this might be very, very surprising to some people, but my codependent style is actually not to jump on the other side of the net and to manage and control people, which lovingly, I think, Sarah, is more yours. So you are a just person. You like to be like, you're not loading the dishwasher the right way.
Your brain.
Yeah. So interestingly, we're the same type. We're both ENFJs, but you have more of a justness in you. And I actually think that that's partially probably our codependent styles, as mine, which again might be very surprising to some people, but this is definitely a learned behavior from my family and definitely my 20-year relationship with someone very domineering and in an addiction and all the things, is that I err on the side of just letting things go.
Not rocking the boat.
Not rocking the boat. So mine is oppression and letting people jump on my side of the net and lose my voice. And so again, I don't think there's a right or wrong to this, but I do think it's fascinating how we find a middle.
Yeah. And I think, so for me, and it's interesting because I actually, the majority of the run this morning was thinking about like, okay, what can I say? And I mean, I often like, for me, running is a coping skill. Running is what I do instead of going on a huge rant in the moment. But I did have this whole entire thought process around, if I go back to a string where the conversation can get heated and then it becomes something that consumes my energy, what do I need to show up for today that I have like a sense of obligation to that? So energy is finite, right? Like I have a limited amount of energy to give today. And am I going to at 7 a.m. dive into a Facebook conversation about homelessness on someone else's page with a guy I met one time and two women I've never met in my life and have that consume my whole day? Because I've done that before and like lost an entire day to it and been consumed in stress and have my stomach in knots. And so that was part of when I do decide to say something, I'm like, okay, I'm going to say something, but I have to say it in a way that I feel really good about so that I can say it, walk away and be like, I don't care where this goes from here. I'm good.
So good.
And if I'm really heated, then I will get into that reactive defensive place of like sitting staring, like is someone typing back right now? Are the dots popping up? Like is someone else commenting? So I think I'm increasingly able to let things go and recognize like, today's not a day I'm going to engage in that conversation, or this is not a place I'm going to engage in that conversation, or I'm only going to engage with basically these like parameters that I'm going to put around myself that I think could be helpful to the conversation without jeopardizing my energy for the day.
How have you figured that out? So what I wrote down is like, how do you decide what you fight for?
Oh gosh. So I think you have to look at what eats you up inside the most. And so like for me, my husband's someone who wants to get up and listen to NPR first thing in the morning, every morning. And I like, it kills my soul to listen to news first thing, but he wants to like have this awareness around like what's going on. And then he can manage that. I can't manage that. So I don't want to see the news, not because I want to be ignorant, but I want to see from like a handful of trusted resources that I manage in my own way. Not just like passive radio in the background while I'm making breakfast. How can I take in information and then kind of decide from there? And it goes back to core values. And so like, I know if I see someone talking about anything related to LGBTQ in a way that is not compassionate and empathetic, like I'm in. If it's around homelessness in Seattle and you're being an ass, I'm in. Like there's just certain things for me. If it's around women in leadership, I'm in. If it's around a woman's right to choose and reproductive rights, I'm in. So some of it for me is topic related based on my core values.
Yeah. So I want to pause there for a minute because I actually had an epiphany when I was having dinner with this friend, that to me was the differentiator. So as we were getting into this about how we decide between what we stand up for and what we accommodate, I'm using air quotes on a podcast, what we accommodate versus what we fight for. And the only answer I had is what you just said, is that how much does it matter to you? And that to me is around your core values. How we decide what is between what we fight for and what we accommodate, what we allow to just be. And the only answer I feel like are those core values. However, I will also say you just said something very powerful around understanding our own energy. Like you and Vince have different energies, and he can listen to the news and do whatever he's going to do. You're cracking up, by the way. Right
we have such different energy.
And so understanding ourselves. So that's the other piece of this, is knowing what we're going to get wrapped up in, because our energy is something that I protect. I don't even know the word. It's so powerful. Like I protect my own energy with such vigor that it's almost nauseating. Like I cannot and will not get involved with bullshit, with fighting with people online or doing the whatevers. Like there's all these haters. So Susan Hyatt and I did our podcast last week, and I've noticed she's getting, the bigger she gets, the more powerful she gets, the more clear she gets with her voice, kind of apparently the more haters are coming out, and they're just throwing daggers and all the things. And I watch people get engaged, and I think they must have better boundaries than I do, because I personally, I don't know if that's accommodating or it's just attunement or it's just smart or it's just whatever it is. But it to me is a personal choice to also let things go. And that to me is also not accommodating. That's just being thoughtful about what you are choosing to engage in based on who you are as a human being. Like I think some people, like my husband, he called it, I'm using air quotes again, debate. And I was like, this stresses me the fuck out. Totally. Oh my God. He and my stepmom at Christmas would debate.
Oh, so uncomfortable for everyone else.
Oh my God.
So
oh my God. I'm like, I would be like, I'm crawling out of my skin right now.
Yes. No, I would hate that. And as an opinionated person, like I would hate that, because I have an opinion and I have a strong sense of justice, but I hate confrontation.
Yes.
So even when I'm going to insert myself into something on social media, I'm like, hi, respectfully, I would just like to say, like I enter the conversation with like, hi, I hear you, or I have a question. A lot of times I'll say lead with curiosity and compassion, so that I'm not just like, hey, you're wrong, because that will tie me up in knots for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that to your point around energy, that we do have to be so careful. And there are certain things there's certain things that I'll engage in, and then there's others that I won't. And that's cost me relationships for sure. And there was a time when I was like not able to sleep at night if I was scrolling social media and saw my dad posting homophobic stuff and posting racist stuff on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I finally, with my husband's nudging, he was like, can you please stop looking at your dad's stuff? Because like I would be up all night. And so I finally had to reach out to my dad and be like, hey, we can't be Facebook friends, because this is really damaging to me to see this constant discrimination. If you want to have a relationship with me in another context, because that was kind of our only context of a relationship anyways. It was like, my door's wide open. The ball is in your court, but I can't do this here. Like I'm also not going to be the only person on your page when you post like homophobic comments to come in and be like, actually, that's really offensive. And then get attacked by 50 or by 5,000 people who are like Bible beaters, like just all they believe in is marriage is between a man and a woman. I'm like, I can't do that. So yeah, so I think I have boundaries, and I choose carefully around how I insert myself into conversations, the conversations I'm willing to be a part of, what I'm willing to see, And so what I'm willing to see and what I'm willing to comment on. So right now, as we're recording this, there's so much stuff on social media around Iran and Iran. And when I see all that, of course I have thoughts and opinions, but that's not something I'm going to talk about publicly, at least at this point, because I also am tuned into how am I best of service to the world.
Totally.
And if I'm getting into that conversation, which I did when Trump was elected, I got into that conversation, and it was such a distraction for the people who I am in the world to serve. And so I'm in the world to serve moms in these certain capacities. And I think that what I believe in and what I stand for in other areas of justice is more relevant and more of service and more positive modeling versus like me getting into a debate about war on Facebook, because I also am not educated in that regard to speak to it at a high enough level, I don't think. So I think there is some really important like distinguishing factors there.
Yeah, my head's like about to fall off because I'm nodding like so heavily about all of this. So I don't normally do this either. I typically try to stay out of that social platform on Facebook, but because there is so much going on, and I'm an empath and I'm a water sign, and my moon's in some frickin' orbit or some shit on Friday. Like, I don't know what's going on. There's so much going on right now. Clearly,
can we just tell people that you sent our group, our mastermind group, this article that was like all about moons and earths and planets. And you're like, I'm not doing anything on Friday because of the alignment of the planets. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You are speaking a different language. And I have a lot going on Friday. And so I'm just going to do my shit on Friday.
Oh my God, I'm dying. I think I've gotten through 53 episodes without snorting, and you just made me snort on air. That was amazing. Oh my God.
It's just so fun. Like, it speaks to like being the same personality type, but being so different. You're like, hold on guys, the sun and the moon on Friday. And I was like, yeah, I'm busy on Friday. So
and I literally have to do this thing. And I was like, oh my God, I have a free day. I'm checking myself into a hotel. I'm going to take a bath. I'm going to like totally zen the fuck out. And I'm going to just read all the things and oh my God, I love this conversation. This is hilarious. And back to, this is such a hilarious conversation. So I did a post today and that I don't normally do. And I was super inspired by watching the Golden Globes and all the women that are standing up and saying what they need to say. And again, I don't normally do this stuff, but there's a part of me that feels really good about doing it. And I'm very glad that I'm not getting any pushback, but I had to decide, like, if someone is basically like, this is bullshit, or you're a man hater. Obviously I'm not, but whatever the thing is, I just thought I have to be willing to say what I want to say with love. So this is another thing that's very up for me right now, is I believe wholeheartedly in being a powerful, badass woman. And we are given feminine energy. I believe as women, we like are the best of both worlds, especially right now. It is an awesome and terrifying time to be a woman. And I freaking love the fact that we can say what we want to say and do what we want to do with love. And so this to me is the middle of that. How do we not show up as a bitch? How do we make a post and make it about love and about loving and about kindness and about whatever, but also still say something? Because I got to be honest. I mean, I kind of weirded out that I'm about to say this, but I've been watching a lot of people on social media, and with all of the shit going on right now, like we're almost going to war and there's all these fires and 1 billion or 500 million animals are dying, and like the shit is going crazy. And there's part of me that just like, I know our lives need to go on. I get it. Safeway's open. Like, I get businesses still have to run. My business still needs to run too. And there's some sort of acknowledgement. And I feel like there's a way to acknowledge anything in our lives with love without being passive or accommodating, or I'm not going to say something because I'm afraid this whoever, sorry, but white man over here, blah, 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 is going to say something. Like, this is the conversation I wanted to have, is like, how do we find that middle ground of again, people's perception is whatever it can be. Like, if you want to think I'm a bitch, you can think I'm a bitch. Like, that's not my problem. Your perception is not my problem. But I want to be able to go out in the world. I want other women, I want the listeners right now to be able to realize that there is a middle ground, that it doesn't mean having a voice. Like, this woman, my friend, is a strong, powerful woman. Like, she is a CEO of a business, $1 million business. And she has a belief that she cannot step up for herself because she will be perceived as a bitch. And I mean, the look on my face when she told me that was just like, are you out of your mind? Like, you've got to be able to say something.
Yeah. And I think, so when I think about that sense of hesitancy to step up and say something, I think about leadership and that all women are leaders in different capacities, but many of us don't identify as such. And I work with moms. And so if you are a mom, you are the leader of children, you're a household manager, and probably 95% of the cases, you're like the default parent and household manager.
Yep.
You are a leader in some capacity in your work. So to your friend's experience, she's the CEO. So we're all leaders in different ways, and maybe it's in an organization, maybe it's in our own business, maybe it's in our marriage or our family, maybe it's in with our aging parents or our siblings or like whatever. So how are you stepping into that leadership? And what do you want your legacy around leadership to be? Because for me, I know what I want it to be clear, like, this is what she stood for. And I don't think that has to be in a heated like debate context all the time. I think it could be even for people who don't want to get their hands dirty in like emotionally, torturous conversations. You can still stand for something. You can still stand for, I mean, I watched the Hollises do this. So Rachel and Dave Hollis, they don't mess around. Like, they don't want to get their hands dirty in a really political conversation. So they are careful around how they word things so that they just consistently show up in a really positive way.
Yeah.
And you can do that. You don't have to even take sides. I mean, there are things that they have started to take sides on more and more over the last year or so, I would say. But I think there's a lot of ways to be a leader without having to step into this role where you're polarizing. Yeah. I like being polarizing because I think when you are polarizing, you attract the right people and you push other people away. And that can be a good thing. Like, there's people I don't want to work with. I'm fine with repelling certain people, and like, they can go find another podcast to listen to, another coach to work with, another community of moms to engage with. But I think that we need to look at how we're showing up as leaders and have conscientiousness around the fact that, like, you already are a leader. Yeah. So what are you doing with that power?
So we're talking at a pretty high level here. And as we're talking about this, I'm thinking this goes back to even our own home. So like you're saying, with the moms, or having a difficult conversation with your dad, with my sister, with whoever we need to have difficult conversations with in our lives, with your partner. Like, you're not going to get through a marriage or any relationship for that matter without needing to have a difficult conversation. And I think this goes to the global context that we're talking about what do you stand for in your business and your life, but also, like, how do you not just accommodate or be passive in your day-to-day life? So here's an example of this, and this is possibly going to trigger some people, but I think a lot of people have been talking about this recently, is I notice women say, "I'm sorry," versus "excuse me."
Or "thank you."
What is what there's a word in the English language, and there's a phrase that is "excuse me." Like, that means can I pass? Like, you're in a grocery store, but someone says, "I'm sorry." And I'm like, I have never heard a man say that. Right. Like, "I'm sorry." They just say, "excuse me." But it is this unbelievable thing, I think, with women, that we have been taught this. So Kate, I think most people are going to find out quickly. Kate Northup is my new coach, and I just got off a mastermind with her, and she is having us read a book called The Patriarch Stress Something. Do you know this book?
No, but I mean, I love a Kate Northup recommendation.
Okay, so I need to find it now. So I'll pull it up. It is Patriarch Stress Something. And I'll put it in the show notes. And it's basically talking about how women in our lineage like thousands and thousands of years, or even just our grandmother, but are the matriarch of women, that we go through this world apologizing or minimizing or saying I'm sorry when there's nothing there's nothing to be sorry for, or not having an opinion, or not having a voice, not setting boundaries, not leaning in. Like one of the best books ever written, is that Cheryl Strayed?
No, Sheryl Sandberg.
Thank you. Leaning in to having a difficult conversation, saying things that might not be super popular, even in your own home, like even with your own family.
And not shrinking, because every time you say you're sorry, you're shrinking. So when I think of like when a guy holds the door for me and I run through and I say, oh my gosh, sorry. And usually that's accompanied with like hunching my shoulders forward and trying to be really tiny as I run through the door as fast as I can. That's shrinking. Like, oh, I'm not worthy for you to like hold the door for me. What? Or walking into a meeting and raising my hand saying, oh, I'm sorry, I just have a question really quick.
Yeah.
That's like, I know all the rest of you are really important, but I was just hoping maybe you could let me say something. That kind of behavior makes, when we make ourselves small that way, then people treat us small. And then it's a vicious cycle, because when people treat us small, like we're small, then we continue to play small. So it's like all this vicious cycle of playing small, staying small, versus if someone holds the door open for you to walk through as slow as you want to with your shoulders up and like, thanks, appreciate it.
Yes.
That person's going to see you totally differently. Or when you raise your hand in a meeting to ask a question and you're like, hey, I need some clarification on point 3.2. And then they're like, oh yeah, we got you, Sarah. So here's this and this, anything else? Yes. Versus them thinking like, well, she's not even really qualified to be here because she is apologizing for having a question.
Yes. And again, I believe strongly that this generation of women, you, me, all the listeners right now, we have a big responsibility right now to break the stereotype that is somehow us being bitchy or she's demanding or whatever. I mean, again, we're watching some of these, white men in our, running our country, and them hopefully going away soon and having a new look and having it be equal, that just because we were born with a different body, with different DNA, and that we are women, we're just born in a women's body, that somehow we are lesser than. I do feel like it is our responsibility right now to step up and to have our voice and feel confident with love. Yeah. But again, there is, with love, and saying what's appropriate of thank you, or I have a question, or again, just not the way that we watch men not apologize and speak up for themselves and have an opinion, because we've got to work on breaking that stereotype that is somehow bitchy, and that it's somehow whatever it is, whatever this stupid, disgusting stereotype is out there.
Yeah.
And then there is a middle.
Yeah. And I think when people see you stepping into that leadership and owning your space and taking up space, your options for opportunities are totally different.
Say more about that. I mean, I agree.
So I think that people take you more seriously, and people elevate you immediately. And they're like, oh, she stands on her own 2 feet. She knows what she wants. I mean, the things that people request from me sometimes, I just had someone come to me and request this woman who I'm in a mastermind group outside of the home, Jessica, and because I like to be in a lot of things at one time. Anyway, so this woman who I was in the group with a year ago, she came back to me and she's like, hey, I need a contract for this certain thing. And I was like, I love that you think I have that, because I'm not like that high level that I have that kind of a contract to share with you. Like if I had it, I would. She's like, oh, I just totally thought you had this, because like, because of how you take up space and because of the different opportunities you've had in the last year. She's like, I thought you would have had this contract that I could maybe, have a template for. And I was like, nope, I probably should have that contract. But like people have this, because I elevate myself in an appropriate way, not like in an ego-driven, boastful way, but in an appropriate way, I elevate myself as a leader, then people treat me that way. And so I get more opportunities because of that. And I'm not apologetic about it. And I think that the more you can do that in an unapologetic way, then the more power you have. And not to be powerful in an egotistical way, but to be powerful in a sense that like, I want to see more women CEOs. I want to see more women with 7-figure businesses. I want to see more women leading in all sorts of capacities. So if I'm playing small as a leader of a community, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. This is so good. And I believe as women, we have this unbelievable, beautiful capacity to hold both. Every person, everybody has both masculine and feminine energy.
Yeah.
But I believe women, probably more so than men, get this ability to step into our power with some feminine energy, with love, with grace, with authority. And again, to me, this is that middle place of taking up space, but not in this, right? This bitter, like, okay, so I'm just going to use an example. So I remember going to a women's retreat years and years and years ago when I first started my business. And I don't even remember the woman's name, but I was in a couple breakout sessions. And this woman was, oh my God, it was so disgusting. I can't even hear the song that she was playing anymore without like getting disgusted by her. Mm-hmm. So there was a man, a very wonderful man, actually. Like, I don't remember who he was either, but very, very like soft and kind and wonderful in the next room. And on the divider, we could hear him a little bit, and it was not being inappropriate at all. But she was so, this woman, she was bitter and resentful and I don't even know the words, just bitter.
Rude,
disrespectful, man-hating, all the things. She was very man-hating, very rude to him. And so she blasted this song, like turned it up so loud and was screaming into the microphone because she wanted to be heard. And this was like early on in my transformation. Like, I mean, it's totally not who I am now, but I even remember.
I'm sure you were so uncomfortable.
I was like, you're disgusting right now. Like, I do not want to be affiliated with this in any way. I wanted to get up and leave, but I actually was afraid she was going to yell at me. But I was so embarrassed to even be in that room because I thought, this is not how to show up with respect and love. Like, you want a man to respect you, but you're not respecting him back? Like, fuck you, lady. You do not get...
And that's like a huge erosion of trust. Like,
totally.
Someone's like, hey, this is encroaching on me in the following ways. And you're like, screw you, I'm going to do it more.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And again, it was in this very disrespectful way. And so this is the way I think we do it with love is it's not about hating that white man next door. Like, it's not about that. It's about finding your voice, because you said something that triggered me a little bit, the take up space. Because I believe wholeheartedly, and I think you and I do this really well, and the woman that I ended up working with, and I will give her credit now because I love her dearly still, and she still does this, is Fabienne Fredrickson. She was the other breakout session I went to. And just to go back to that other woman, her high pressure sales was also so disgustingly masculine. It was basically like, you're an idiot if you don't do this. In fact, she stopped me in the bathroom and was like, what's wrong with you that you didn't sign up? And I don't remember what I said to her, but I just thought, I want nothing to do with your energy. And then I go into Fabienne Fredrickson's breakout session, and she is powerful AF, like all the power, and so brilliant in her feminine energy. She is powerful yet soft and gets her point across, absolutely unapologetic. It has power, has all the things, yet she's also respectful. She's very loving, all the things. So, and again, I totally bought her program. I spent, I don't know, $50,000 with her, like all the things. And so there is a way to go about this, taking up space, combining our masculine, feminine energy, being unapologetically who we are, finding a space in the world, and also doing it with mutual respect. And I think that's another interesting thing going on right now is that there's, have you heard of being woke? Yeah. So I just find this hilarious. Like, this is basically like, you don't need to say you're woke. If you say you're woke, it means you're not woke. It's just like people with money. If you brag about,
it's also a potentially discriminatory term for white people to use.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I just heard this for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, so I think it was, I don't know the history of it, so I won't pretend that I do, but yes, I do know. So I follow a lot of women of color who are like, white women walking around saying that you're woke need to shut up, because
shut up.
Yeah, you're actually not using the word in a way that is appropriate. So I know I'm familiar with the word, and I until recently was familiar with it just in terms of, you know, how it's been used in the last couple of years. But now I'm seeing it in different contexts and different people referencing it in different ways, and that like white women with all their privilege, similar to white men, don't need to talk about how woke they are.
Yeah. And then being disrespectful to other people. So my friend who was telling me about this woke thing, I was like, what does this even mean? She's like, awakened or whatever. I'm like, oh. And so the people that were saying they were woke were like trying to discriminate against this other class of people. And I just thought, oh my God, everyone just stop. Everyone just stop with all the stuff. Like, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that, so you were talking about, you know, women tapping into their, not to go all into their masculine energy and to keep the softer sides. And I think there's also the other end of that. So I'm raising a son, and to also encourage men to go into their feminine energy and create safe places for that to happen. So there needs to be a safe place for women to lead, take up space, exist with and have an opinion without being considered a bitch. And there needs to be safe places, like a safe universe for men to have any level of emotional intelligence. Because we know that boys who don't have emotional intelligence, they're school shooters. They are the president of our country right now. Like,
correct.
So there's a generation of men, more than one generation, who have not been raised with any awareness of their emotional intelligence. And that is to the same place that, like, we've kept women really small and kept them trying to shrink. We've also had men stuffing emotions for enough generations now that we have men that are like crippled in their own emotional identity. Yeah. So we both need to, men need to be able to step from the masculine into the feminine, and women need to be able to step from the feminine into the masculine, but we need to save pieces of, save edges of all of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hope that before we don't get to be on this earth anymore, that we get to see this, because it's shocking to me how far away we still are from this.
Yeah. I'm constantly trying to get my child to talk about his feelings.
How's that going?
I mean, my child is not someone who loves to share. He's an internalizer more than he talks constantly about Legos, but not so much about like how he feels about the day. But I have him label feelings. And when he gets upset about something, I try to never bulldoze his feelings or shut down his feelings. And so when he, and this is something parents do all the time, when a kid is like freaking out about something and you're like, it's not that big of a deal, or you need to just pull it together, or it's not, maybe your kid is like, I'm so sad, I'm so scared, I don't want to go to bed. And you're like, it's not even scary in our house. So anytime you take a child's emotion and tell them that they're actually not feeling that thing, you're not doing them any favors. And we do create more space for females' feelings throughout the course of their life. So I don't think it's it's not good for either, but I think for women, they continue to have opportunities to show up in in different emotions. But for little boys, when you're constantly telling them, don't be scared of the dark, and don't be scared at night, and don't be sad because of this, and you need to get over it, and you need to stop it, and it's not that big of a deal, we're not giving them opportunities instead to say, like, how are you feeling? And let me help you. And it's okay if you're sad, and here's what we can do together. And I mean, anyone at my kid's school will tell you that my son and I stand in the middle of the playground doing deep breaths sometimes because he's losing his mind about things. And I'm like, this is just what we're doing. I'm not like going to say, you need to get in that building right now. I'm like, I will stay here with you until you feel safe and calm. And we'll take deep breaths, even though I'm screaming in my head that you are like, my day is supposed to begin now. And
This is so good because this is the whole other side of this as, as somebody who doesn't have any children and primarily works with women. And obviously I am a woman. I was seeing this really from our vantage point. And you're right. There's a whole nother side of this of how do men accommodate societal views and how do they like balance this between like, who am I naturally and how am I accommodating? And a lot of that accommodating is you are supposed to be a certain way. I mean, this goes back to type. Like this is all the stuff that I love talking about is that 66 to 75% of men are thinking men and they don't naturally love to talk about their feelings anyway. But then we also live in this very societal world that says those kinds of things. Don't cry. Don't do that. Don't have a meltdown right now. This isn't okay, and all of that. So this is, I don't know how many more years I got on this earth, Sarah, but this is my work. This is what I want to do. I want to have this conversation. I want to help us understand who we are naturally, which is like where we started this conversation about our energy and understanding like how do we choose to get involved with certain things? How do we make that choice? How do we decide when to lean in and when to accommodate all of those things? But also for when, you're right, men and women, how do we find this balance? And we're not going to solve it today, but hopefully by the time
we're way closer than 45 minutes ago though.
You're right. Okay. In closing, what do you got for us?
I just want everyone listening to consider the roles in which they are already showing up as a leader, whether or not they're choosing to embrace that or not. Okay. And then look more closely at, is the way you're showing up as a leader in those spaces and places in alignment with your core values, in integrity with who you want to be and where you want to go, in integrity with like the legacy that you want to leave. And it's going to look so different from one person to the next. If you're an introvert, I always say like, I want to be on stages yelling in microphones. I don't think that that's for everyone. And so finding ways that you can lead that's in alignment with who you are and what your gifts are, which, Jessica talks about, endlessly on this podcast. So I think I'll leave you with that. And then in terms of where to find me, you can find the Shameless Mom Academy on any podcast platform. So wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you're listening to this podcast, just do a search for the Shameless Mom Academy. And then you can find out more about connecting with me if you go to shamelessmom.com. We have Shameless MomCon coming up in March. See some shameless moms from the Front Seat Life there. There will be already. I know a couple.
Yes, good.
That's coming up at the end of March. And then you can join our Facebook group with, I think we're almost at like 3,000 shameless moms from all over the world. If you go to shamelessmom.com/Facebook.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes. So just go down, click it. Her event is awesome. I spoke at it last year. Was that just last year?
So good. It was just last year. Jessica had like a line of paparazzi like following her through the hotel. It was amazing.
I'm not going to lie. It was one of my favorite moments.
I got down to the room this is the second morning of the event. Jessica's supposed to go on at like 9:00. I'm like, okay, well, the room opens at 8:30. Jessica's like, I'll be there at 8:20. I was like, dude, I'm not even going to be there at 8:20. I go down there and there's a line of people. I'm like, no one stood in line to see me.
You are so sweet. I don't know how that happened, but I did notice it was just weird. I was at the Sheridan, which is where I have my events as well. And I'm walking through the lobby and I hear people whispering and I look over and they're all pointing at me. And I was like, wait, what? Are they talking about me? Like, is this a thing? And I did. I loved every single minute of it. And your face when you walked in the room was basically like, what's up, bitch? What's happening?
Did you need my people for a minute?
Oh my God, it was so good. You were you're not invited back.
This is in alignment with what we were just talking about, like quick little last minute thing.
Yeah.
So we had the opportunity to attend an event together, Amy Porterfield's event in this fall, which was awesome. But I noticed when you're in a crowd that you attract, your energy is big in a crowd, like not big loud, but you're tall and then you wear like 3-inch heels. And then you have the big blonde hair and then you always have on lipstick. I'm like, you take up space in like the most magnetic way. And so I'm sure when people saw you in the lobby, they're like, I mean, anyone, when you're just walking through places, like people do a double take because like we just talked about in taking up space, like you are up tall, shoulders back, like bubbly personality. People are like, I want to connect with that. So for you to be walking through your hotel lobby, they're like, there she is. Oh my God. Because people want to be a part of it. If you had walked in like in a baseball hat, like trying to hide, they'd be like, they would be totally intimidated. They'd be like, we are not going to go ask her for her autograph.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a very interesting side note too. I mean, we both have a friend, Lisa Fisher, who, is a stylist. And I think there is something about how we choose to show up. Like it needs to be authentic for who you are for sure. But there is something about, think about when you get up and you put black on and you put a hat on and you put, your big puffy coat on and you just want to hide. Like I've been there for sure. And you go through, stages of your life. But what would it be like for us just energetically, emotionally, physically to show up, to like what you said, to have your shoulders back and to feel confident and look people in the eye and say hello. And oh God, I can't believe I'm going to share this, but oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. This is definitely where we'll end. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but when I was, oh God, can I say this? Ooh. So when I was dating, I am a strong woman. For sure. And that's like how I present myself 99% of the time. Shoulders back, strong. I have opinions. I've got things to say. Yet I still try to be feminine. And when I was dating, I was attracting some interesting people. And my brother-in-law taught me a thing that I don't know if women know about. I think more men know this than women. That, oh God, this is terrible. That there are certain men that have a slogan for women, and they call them, have you heard this before? They call them the wounded fawn. And oh my God, that has stuck with me. He told me this probably 5 years ago, and I was fucking mortified when I heard that this is a thing and that men talk like this. That's the wounded fawn is the woman who's been hurt, who's been damaged, who wears her shoulders down, who doesn't have a voice, who is meek. And this is so disgusting to say, but she's easy prey. Oh my God, I'm like disgusted even saying this. That, right, the wounded fawn. So the tiger or whoever goes after it, the cheetah, whoever kills the freaking fawn, I don't know, apparently the analogy is that's the man, that they then can go after the wounded fawn. They don't go after let me be very clear that oftentimes they don't go after the strong woman, the strong fawn. They go after the wounded fawn. I might decide to cut this out. Because
it takes an emotionally intelligent man to be able to be in a relationship with a leader.
Yes, please. Yes,
please. A man with no emotional intelligence will absolutely go after someone he perceives to be tiny, weak, and meek.
Yes. So through osmosis, I believe as women start being the non-wounded fawn, we become the magnificent fawn. We will require through evolution men to step their fucking game up. Now we're going to end. Yes. Okay, now we're going to end. Thank you, Sara. Thank you for having this conversation with me. Thank you for just being open. Thank you for just like sitting and having this and diving in, because this is what I want to do. Like, I know this is what you're doing with moms on yours. Like, this is the dialogue. It's 2020. It's time to start getting more real, having conversations. And thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
From the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you so much for listening. I know that you have a ton of options, and the fact that you are taking time to listen to the Front Seat Life podcast means absolutely everything to me. If you're interested in learning more about the Front Seat Life way of life in the community, there's a couple ways that you can do that. First is always starting with your personality assessment tool. It's available on my website at jessicabutts.com. It's totally free, and it will help you figure out your personality type so you'll have some idea of what we're talking about. Next is, if you're interested in hiring me for a keynote or some coaching or strategy days or the fabulous and amazing Front Seat Life community, you can find out all about all of that at jessicabutts.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.